Are you ready? It's coast to coast, we're here and we representing Tom Joyner Foundation. We about to jump right in it. Everybody is woke. HBCUs, let's go. Tradition, trendsetting. Let's do it for the culture. HBCU, big one.
This is Thomas Joyner Jr., and welcome to another episode of the Tom Joyner Foundation presents HBC Ubiquity. Question: what do Earl the Pearl Monroe, Charles Oakley, and Ben Wallace all have in common? Well, besides the fact that they are all, of course, former basketball players, the answer is that they all played their college basketball within the Central Intercollegiate Athletic Association, also known as the CIAA. The CIAA is an athletic conference within Division II of the NCAA, and it currently comprises the following institutions: Bowie State University, Chowan University, Claflin University, Elizabeth City State University, Fayetteville State University, Johnson C. Smith University, Lincoln University of Pennsylvania, Livingstone College, St. Augustine's University, Shaw University, Virginia State University, and Virginia Union University. The CIAA is one of the oldest conferences within the NCAA. It was founded originally in 1912 on the campus of Hampton Institute, now of course known as Hampton University, as the Colored Intercollegiate Athletic Association. In fact, they did not change their name to what it currently is until 1950. The CIAA is known for many things, but perhaps what it's most famous for is its annual basketball tournament. The tournament is held during the second half of February every year and has moved locations over the years, once being in Richmond, Virginia, then moving to Raleigh, North Carolina, and now in its current home of Charlotte, North Carolina. The tournament is many things to many people. Besides, of course, being the ultimate decider of bragging rights for who has the best basketball team within the conference, it is also an opportunity for institutions to fundraise, for alumni to reconnect, and for students to have an old-fashioned good old time. Think of it as a super homecoming comprising many HBCUs. And by the way, this year's tournament, the 2019 CIAA, was won by Virginia State University for the men and Virginia Union University for the women. In this episode, we will be talking with Dr. Anthony Davis, executive consultant to the president of Livingstone College. Dr. Davis is a CIAA alum and will be sharing with us his own personal favorite memories as well as the history and significance of the conference. We will also be talking with Ms. Jackie McWilliams, the current commissioner of the CIAA, to discuss its economic impact on its host cities and the future of the conference. Again, thank you for taking your time to listen to today's HBC Ubiquity podcast. Welcome, and let's get started.
Before we get back to the HBC Ubiquity podcast, let's take a look at some Tom Joyner Foundation fundraising highlights. Here's an example of TJF's success.
Hi, my name is Brenda Daniel. I'm a sophomore and aviation science major from Morganton, North Carolina. After completing my degree, I hope to fly for Samaritan's Purse, an international disaster relief ministry. I'd like to thank First Citizens Bank and the Tom Joyner Foundation for the scholarships and helping me to achieve my dream.
To donate to the Tom Joyner Foundation, just log on to www.tomjoynerfoundation.org and you can help a student continue their education at a HBCU.
All right, so this is Thomas Joyner Jr. with Ms. Jackie McWilliams, commissioner of the CIAA tournament. How are you today?
I am awesome. Doing very well, thank you.
Great to hear. You were mentioning before we got started that the headquarters are there in Charlotte. Are they going to stay in Charlotte for the short term?
Yeah, we moved here about 4.5 years ago, and so the intent is this is our headquarters, this is our home. So regardless where the tournament is, we'll remain here in Charlotte, North Carolina for the time being.
All right. And so with that said, tell me about the economic impact that the tournament has on its host cities.
The economic impact has grown significantly, especially since when it moved in Charlotte back in 2014. No, longer than that, 2007, that long ago.
Wow.
We've been here 14 years. So next year will be 15 years. So excuse my math, but we, prior to coming here, I think the economic impact in other cities was probably less than 10 million, if that. Or I don't even know if they provided the surveys to really understand the economic impact. When we moved to Charlotte, they had been tracking it for the last 14 years. I've been here 7 seasons, and so what I've seen is it's about an average of 50 million, and even in the lowest year, which was a couple years ago, it was still about 46.7 million, and that was the year they hit, the state hit the House Bill 2 issue, where we saw that there was less people coming to Charlotte and North Carolina. But even with that, have an economic impact that's even over 30 million is significant for any city.
I can imagine. So with that kind of impact, if you're over $40 million annually, they must have really hated to see the CIAA go.
Yeah, it's and we live here in Charlotte, so we're part of this community as well. And so I think on a personal side, we hate to see it go as well. But on a business side, we understand that it's time for the conference to move and move to another city where we can provide some new opportunities, branding, a new even demographic of folks on the northern side of the CIAA. And so we're excited about that. I think there is disappointment here. The small businesses, particularly minority businesses and promoters that come to Charlotte. It's a great market to do education, but also the number of jobs that have been created around just the CIAA. So the city might look at economic impact. We look at community impact. And so when you have 5,000 youth from middle school to high school engaged in activities, and even the opportunity for some of them students to go to any of the 13 of our member institutions, that's a huge impact. There's about 600 to 700 jobs annually during our tournament that are created for the tournament alone. And so the impact will change for Charlotte at the end of February. There's no doubt. So how they create new business, I don't know. But definitely, anytime you lose this type of business annually, they have to make some adjustments as a city.
I'm glad you mentioned that because, as growing up in Dallas, Texas, we were not exposed to HBCUs the way that, say, recent students in Charlotte are exposed to being able to come down to the CIAA Fun Fest and get, recruitment opportunities from 13 different, member institutions. Do you think that the institutions themselves are going to miss that recruitment opportunity?
Oh, absolutely. I think what will happen is you'll see them change the demographic of where they can bring new students. The one thing about CIAA in our footprint, 8 of our schools are in North Carolina. So, how they recruit state institutions recruiting state students. Private institutions have a little bit of more flexibility because the price of the tuition is pretty much the same for private institutions. But I do see that there's an opportunity for them to recruit new students and also to promote and create awareness of their schools that are in the South. For going up north. So, there could be some, angst with them, but I think they can also see the opportunities that are available through the CIAA to aggregate a different demographic of students.
Yeah, I've attended, several of the I probably attended the last 5 or 6 CIAAs in a row. And in terms of this past one, 2 weekends ago, I can't recall seeing the city of Charlotte, embrace the tournament quite like it did this past tournament. And I'd asked a few people, around me, and they said they noticed the same thing.
Yeah, it's this month has been a big month for Charlotte. There is so much going on. I mean, we're getting ready to have the ACC tournament here this week, right? The week prior to us was the All-Star, where probably they're estimating economic impact at $101 million. The capacity of hotels are pretty much filled. I mean, so we're in between, 2 professional and a Division I tournament and a small Division II conference, that creates a cultural experience more than just basketball. And so now fans have to choose where they're going to come. How many times are they going to come to Charlotte to be a part of the experience? And so I think we'll feel a little bit of that impact for CIAA outside of the events that were compacted during the week of the tournament, from the Hornets having games and events, to whatever is going on in the city, we're always combating that, to try to market ourselves and spend the dollars to create awareness of wanting people to be a part of the CIAA. So it's been a hard market the last couple of years for us to include what happened in the state a couple of years. And I have to keep bringing that up because when people say, your attendance looks less or, things that are, it doesn't look like there's that many people there, coming back to Charlotte, there's reasons for that. So whether there's burnout, whether people are angry about the hotel rates or whether people are just fed up with whatever, that's our fans. And so we've done surveys, we've heard them, and part of the move was the response to the surveys that we saw. So Charlotte is a great market, but it's gotten even harder for us to aggregate new guests and new ticket holders here in the community.
Yeah. But as you say, I just want to, reiterate for our listeners that perspective that you just put out there is it's very important to keep in mind that, yes, you're sandwiched in between the traditional NBA All-Stars coming to Charlotte and then the traditional, or like CIAA is also traditional, ACC tournament. But even though CIAA is a Division II conference within the NCAA, economically, you're just as competitive. You hold your own against, more traditional mainstream weekends in Charlotte too. So that's to be commended. And that is, a reflection of, the hard work that you and your staff have put into this in the last 7 years. So congratulations.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. When I took this position and we created the whole platform of tradition, leadership, and community, one of the goals, and talking to the board and my passion for coming back as a former CIAA student athlete was to ensure that we could create this culture and environment outside of sport, that we could use the platform of sport and really create a synergy for our students to want to be a part of this outside of the game, student athletes and regular students. So, as you see at the tournament, you see the queens. We bring students across all campuses to do, sessions and meet corporate sponsors, mentorship, mental health. So, we understand that basketball is the core of who we are and our sports are core of who we are, but we also know that our students need much more than that, to survive in the culture that we're currently in, but to really create an awareness of how much the CIAA supports their academic and athletic, performances in this conference.
Right. So with that said, Ms. McWilliams, as college basketball continues to grow in the amount of fan interest and revenue generation, what do you see on the horizon for the basketball tournament and the conference as a whole over the next few years?
Yeah, it's fun, to think about the growth of this conference. I mean, I think we're trying to keep up with the trends nationally, regionally, and locally. I think we're in a good spot. When we started our CIAA Sports Network, we knew we were a little bit behind other conferences, Division I, II, and III, on creating that. But we knew when we launched it, we wanted to be a well-ran and supported sports network outside of our television partnership with Aspire that we've had the last few years. Mm-hmm. I think creating the exposure for our member institutions and our students, through all of our platforms, social media, radio, television, whatever it is, I think we want to make sure that we are still leading in Division II or leading across the country and providing that for CIAA member institutions. That helps them with their own recruitment. It's appetizing to our fans to be able to log on and see what's going on throughout the year, what's going on campus. So it's not just sports-based, it's also activity and events that are happening on their campuses that we've allowed them to put on our sports network. We'll be celebrating 75 years of the men's basketball tournament next year in 2020, which we end in Charlotte. We have a bunch of creative ideas. Liquid Soul out of Atlanta is our partner. They're just as excited. We're just trying to close out for this year, but we know 75 years is a big year. We celebrated 45 years for women's this year. It'll be 46 next year. So really just making sure that when we leave Charlotte, we left the footprint and people know that 75 years of this tournament is not just locally. We were founded in Washington, D.C., where the first tournament was 1946. So the transition going up to Baltimore and Maryland is kind of a sweet transition and baton handoff, to celebrate here and then take the essence of who we are up north. So we're looking forward to that and academic and development programs for our student athletes. Mental health is truly one of the concerns that we have for our student athletes. We spent a lot of time with them during the tournament to really talk about the issues, and they were heard. And so now it's our job to figure out how do we continue the voices of our students in front of our board, in front of our athletic directors, so that we can create whatever platforms on our campuses or even within the conference or the national office to ensure that these issues are being tackled.
And with you brought up something that I wanted to touch upon right quick in your last two answers. You are both a former CIAA student athlete, and now you are the chairperson of the conference. From the student athlete perspective, how was the experience changed from your time to what the conference is able to offer to today's student athletes?
Wow, I always tell our students, I wish, and maybe if we had it, I don't even know if I would have known to get involved with it. It's so funny how we have to coerce and push our students and our institutions to engage our students. And once they get in it, they're just blown away. We can't keep them away. And so it has changed in a way where the opportunities and the resources available to provide these opportunities, particularly in Division II, where they provide grant dollars to give back into our membership these types of programs. So a lot of our stuff that we do is not necessarily coming out of our operational budget because we wouldn't be able to manage, but we have Division II grant dollars and additional funding from our sponsors that allow us to do this great work. And I'm not sure we had all of that when I was going through Hampton and playing the game, but I do remember Bob Mormon was the commissioner at the time, and seeing him, he was present. The awards were great. The environment was great. I always had a great student-athlete experience at our championships. The difference that I see is that we have blown this thing up now. My experience working at NCAA and working at championships, I understand the essence of creating that environment. I'm an event planner by heart, and so, we do things very differently. When our student-athletes leave our championships and they go to an NCAA first round, they don't even understand. It's a very different experience from signage perspective to the gift that they receive to what they get here going into a first round NCAA. So it's a different experience, that's for sure.
And what sport did you play at Hampton?
I played volleyball and basketball. We won the 1988 Division II Women's National Championship, Fargo, North Dakota. So imagine a bunch of women of color getting on a bus to Fargo or a plane to Fargo, North Dakota. And I'm from Colorado Springs, so they were shocked.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, I always have to ask this of Pirate alumni. Did your class have a name?
Yeah, Ogre Phi Ogre.
Okay, there you go. My wife is quintessence too.
Yeah. Look, we're the only university in the country that has class names. When Hamptonites see each other, we'll be like, "What's your class name?" And that's how we connect.
Exactly. Our social media coordinator for the foundation, she's quintessence either 4 or 5, if not mistaken.
Wow.
Yeah. I've heard, I've heard over the years, all the great stories of, or not all, but many great stories about Earl the Pearl Monroe and Fred Curly Neal. But can you talk to us about some of the other great CIAA alumni that we have not heard as much about?
Yeah, the CIAA is just such an amazing platform. And it's funny, if you've ever seen the video Black Magic, that was done by ESPN years ago, and it was collaborated with the NCAA. And it's pretty much the history of black college basketball from Fisk University all the way to, CIAA and SWAC. I mean, it's an incredible, that's my pregame before I go in the tournament. And when you hear about, the McClendon. I mean, everybody knows the name of John B. McClendon. The foundation, I'm on a foundation board that gives out scholarship money for John B. McClendon. And we knew him. When you're in the CIAA, you sat next to him. He gave you advice. Big House Game. Jeanette Lee a lot of people don't know about. She was at St. Paul's College, which no longer is open. But she was a woman that I saw coaching and athletic director, administrator, you name it. And so you didn't get to see as many women as you did men in this conference, but there are some significant women that came out of this conference and played, or even as administrators. Dr. Green from Fayetteville State University, who is still part of our program, and who John B. McClendon basically mentored her to be a part of the John B. McClendon All-Conference Tournament Committee, and she's still leading that on his behalf for us.
Wow, now that's what I need. What we need to know here.
Yeah.
You know, before we got started with this, we were talking a little bit about what's on the horizon for the upcoming weeks. And so I told you I wanted to come back to that. You know, when it comes to CIAA, basketball seems to be the most talked about of all the sports. But what are some of the other recent sports highlights, past or upcoming, within the conference?
Yeah, so in the next week we have our bowling championships. What's interesting, we just posted yesterday, Fayetteville State University's women's bowling team is like 20 games. They have 50 games in a row, that's incredible in bowling. And they have the opportunity to receive an automatic qualification to play in the NCAA playoffs, which that became new for us last year for Division II to get an automatic qualification. Even in bowling, Bowie State has won the last couple of years in a row, Virginia State. So bowling's a big deal here. When it was created, it was really to give minority women an opportunity to have another sport to play, and bowling was one that my Black people, period, have loved to bowl historically. And so that sport was added to the conference some years ago to create the opportunity for women. The other is track and field. Like, we talk a lot about basketball, and we've had national championships in basketball, in men's and women's side, but track is like big for us, and we don't talk about it enough, but Coach Williams at St. Augustine's University, he's won 20 combined national championships between men and women.
Oh, wow.
He's got some, significant runners who have gone and won in the Olympics. I mean, it's just an incredible conference with a lot of history. Tia Adana Bell from St. Aug. A couple of years ago, we had a student athlete from Livingstone College, Quinera Hayes, that qualified for the Olympics, won Division II nationals, and the list goes on for track and field. And then for football, Coach Taylor will be inducted. He's at Virginia Union University. He's coached at Hampton. He was at Florida. He was at FAMU some years, and then he came back to Hampton as the athletic director. He's at Virginia Union now, and he'll be inducted into the Football College Hall of Fame this December. So Amir Hall for football, Black College Hall of Fame. He's probably going to get selected possibly in the NFL. We've got Trenton Cannon, who's playing for the New York Jets right now. He came to the tournament last year. Just an amazing young man. Sharika McNeil, I know we talked about basketball, but she just hit and just made some great history in this conference by breaking a national record, or tying a record for the number of points during a game. I mean, this conference is pretty incredible. That's what I can tell you. We've got some amazing people.
Yes, it does. And you also have somebody from the conference that played in this year's tournament that's going to be going to the NBA draft, right?
Yeah, hitting from Shaw University, a young man. It sounds like he wants to go to the NBA, and he may have that opportunity. He's an incredible, agile student athlete, and we're excited about his opportunity. We haven't had anybody in the NBA since 2005, and that was with Ben Wallace. So we're hoping this young man will have the opportunity to shine his light and represent the conference in Shaw, if that opportunity is available to him.
My last question for today, and I know that a lot of the more traditional older alumni who've been wondering the same thing as they come back to more recent CIAAs. When and why did non-HBCU start joining the conference?
That's a great question. I had to to really think about, when Shawan came in this conference, I guess back in 2009, and they were a non-HBCU. And what I known from looking at board minutes and notes, I think they saw it was an opportunity not just to diversify the population of student athletes in our conference, but just felt like there was an opportunity to bring some additional and new competition to the CIAA. They thought it was good for the health of the conference, bringing in new sports. Shawan, they're leaving our conference after this year because they've added so many more sports that we don't have, like lacrosse, field hockey, swimming. Although we like all those sports, and interesting, people don't know lacrosse was a big sport for HBCUs, particularly for Morgan State back in the day, and it's no longer in the same. We're no longer participating in the same rate. Hampton added it back, but those are sports that we don't have in our conference anymore. And so with that, they had to go to a different conference, Conference Carolinas, where they can hold more championships in those sports that we don't host. So we'll be back to 12 members next year. But, for CIAA, I think we know the wealth and health of who we are. Mm-hmm. We're a basketball conference and football, and then all of our women sports get to fall not under, but they benefit from those two championships where revenue builds for us. And so if we ever expand our conference, we'll always look to diversify, not necessarily if it's a historically non-HBCU, but really what do they bring to the conference that will bring great value to the conference, that will bring, an opportunity for competition, sports sponsorship, you name it. So I think all of that is into play.
That makes a lot of sense, and I appreciate the answer. On the flip side of that, you see that happening this academic school year with your alma mater, Hampton, joining the Big South and bringing a new level of diversity as well as fan base to a conference that's not traditionally had that type before. So I definitely understand that.
Yeah, and as a former Hampton grad, it's kind of hard to see Hampton transition to another conference, particularly when we're used to being in the MEAC or CIAA where the culture, the cultural differences. But at the same time, I understand, the reasons why Hampton would make that business decision for the overall program and exposure that they will get through the Big South. So we all have to make business decisions in the best interest of our institutions and conference. But I can tell you, the former alumni, it's still hard to get your head around, what does that look like when you're used to going and seeing the Norfolk and Hampton battle, the Howard and Hampton battle,
That's right.
It's just different. It's different.
Yeah, I attended the MEAC school myself, and it is different. But I have faith in Dr. Harvey, as Hampton alumni say, word to Harvey, and I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, they went into the Big South and won the track championship already.
Yep.
So there's some great opportunities for them in going that route. And like you, I have great respect for his business mind and sense. When I took this job, I spoke to him on several occasions, just on trying to stay afloat here and how to manage expectations for a conference on the business side. And he's always been an instrumental person from a distance and even close up for me. So yeah, it's a good move for them.
Well, Ms. McWilliams, thank you very much for this opportunity to talk today. And I appreciate it. We appreciate it. And on behalf of HBC Ubiquity, thank you for your time. And if you got any questions or comments for me, I'll be around. And hopefully we can do this again on some other topics pretty soon.
Oh, absolutely. And if you ever come to Charlotte, just give me a shout. Love to see you and have lunch or dinner with you or something if you have the time.
Will do. Thanks and have a great day.
Okay, you too. Thank you. And tell your wife, go Hampton Quintessence.
I sure will.
Hi, my name is Jada Lewis. I'm a junior and my major is elementary education. I'm from Jackson, Mississippi. Thanks to this scholarship, I will be able to pursue my dream goals as a first grade teacher. Thank you, Jackson Tallulah Alumni Chapter and the Tom Joyner Foundation.
Welcome back to HBC Ubiquity. This is Thomas Joyner Jr., and I'm joined by Dr. Anthony Davis, special consultant at Livingstone College. Good morning, Dr. Davis. How are you today?
Man, I am doing well. Tom, how's everything going with you?
Everything is going great today. Everything is going great. So tell me, as a CIAA alum, tell me your personal favorite memory from tournaments past.
Oh, wow. You're going to jump right in. So I'm not throwing shade this early in the morning, but I have two, 2014, 2015. As you know, Livingstone College won back-to-back CIAA championships. I'm not mad at nobody, but, they don't talk about our basketball prowess. They always talk about the other sports, but basketball, we've been very successful in the CIAA. And I remember that 2014 being in the tournament, most people didn't think Livingstone had a chance because we had not been there in a long time. And I remember getting the phone call, Livingstone College is in the finals tonight. And I remember driving up to Charlotte, buying a ticket outside, and going in and sitting there to witness Livingstone College winning that championship against the Rams of Winston-Salem, where later I would send my son so I could have bragging rights in the house. But that is my most memorable moment. And I remember that tournament, or it was the year after. I remember because most people didn't know the name Livingstone College Town. I remember when Winston-Salem State was making a run against Livingstone, we were up. And I remember comedian par excellence Kevin Hart was in the building. And when Winston started making their run, he was standing up cheering for Winston. And I was mad. And I said, man, I'll never go watch another one of his movies or go to one of his comedy shows. But it's all good. We won that championship as well. Those are my memorable moments in the CIAA, being able to witness Livingstone College in their drought and win 2 back-to-back titles.
And almost had a third one this year, too.
That's right.
Got back to the finals again.
Yeah. I don't want to say what I really wanted to say, but because I know that this will be heard. I have a friend who went to Virginia State, one of my best friends in the whole world. He called bragging about that. And in a safe space, can I say what I told him? Can I say?
Sure. Oh, yeah.
I told him, I said, yeah, that's good, but you still come, your school is still in a state where the governor wears blackface and his wife, so I was able to share that with him. So I said, all things relative.
And you never know, you might be seeing them again in the finals next year.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's our plan. That's our plan to execute with excellence. And so I'm proud to be a Livingstonian.
I've heard of Earl the Pearl Monroe and Fred Curly Neal, but talked about some of the other great CIAA alumni that we have not heard so much about.
Well, there's some it's been sporadic over the years. I think 2002, there was the shooting guard from Shaw. We called him Flip Murray. I mean, he was a shooter, got drafted to the NBA, but you go back, you heard of Earl the Pearl Monroe, you talked about him, but then there are names that we don't talk about, those unsung heroes. When you think about someone like a Cleo Hill, who scored almost 2,500 points, I think 2,488 points, average about 27 points per game. This was in 1961 before the three-point shot.
Wow.
And he was drafted number 8. So you think about that, 1961, he was drafted number 8 to the Hawks organization when they were in St. Louis. You think about Rick Mahorn when you see these guys and, who are NBA legends. But Rick Mahorn was at Hampton University. And then, you think about, Charles Oakley. And then one name that we really don't talk about is Ben Wallace. So Charles Oakley, I believe, goes to Virginia Union, goes to the NBA, and then later he discovered Ben Wallace. And Ben Wallace, who was an undrafted and was a free agent, gained access to the league and would later on become the 4-time, Defensive Player of the Year. So there's always been talent at our HBCUs, but I'll call them those hidden gems. But a man of woman's gifts will definitely make room for them, and that's what you're seeing with these athletes that I've mentioned.
As college basketball continues to grow in the amount of fan interest and revenue generation, what do you see on the horizon for the basketball tournament and the conference as a whole?
Well, again, I don't have the inside information. Of course, I have my perspective as an alum, a spectator, and a supporter, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I believe that as we move toward the future, revenue generation that gets to be reinvested into the institutions, I think will be critical for our overall survival. I think making people respect our dollar, when we talk about the economic impact of a tournament like the CIAA, I think it's none like it in the country. But how do we see those resources? And I think that the conference does a great job of spreading the resources, but I would love to see more external entities invest in the tournament to help us, advance the mission of these great institutions, because by and large, I shared that in 2002, we remember, Flip Murray, but most of the students who are playing in these collegiate sports are indeed student athletes. So if they're indeed student athletes, let's invest in a platform that makes student athletics possible. So providing scholarship dollars and resources that will help them navigate what I call life after student athletics. So life after basketball, life after whatever sport you actually participated in while in college.
And if you don't mind, I want to digress for a quick second onto that topic. What kind of provisions are being made at Livingstone for student athletes to be able to, to experience, and have a, successful life after college, life after basketball?
Well, I have to say, I don't do shout outs, but if I could, shout out to the great leader there, Dr. Jimmy R. Jenkins, who has a vision of this holistic college. I think that at Livingstone College, Dr. Jenkins has done what I call purposeful innovation to make sure that the students not only obtain a degree, but they're prepared to navigate life after they receive that diploma. So that holistic college, looking at different areas when we think about health, wellness, and fitness, how are we addressing some of the health disparities that affect our community by producing healthy practitioners, so to speak, looking at some of the other areas, other modules, dressing for success, understanding the delicate balance between privilege and opportunity. In other words, an appreciation for this opportunity that has been extended to you to obtain your degree. What is going to be your contribution to society? And I think that what Dr. Jenkins has done is he has embraced what Mandela said about education, where that education is the weapon, the only weapon that we have that we can change the world. And I think that we're deploying that weapon on the campus of Livingstone College. 140 years later, we're in the business of preparing our students to navigate life. Dr. Jenkins says it like this, where our students will command their rightful place in the global economy. And so we're meeting them where they are, and we're taking them where they need to go.
All right. You mentioned something earlier I wanted to also come back to as an alum and as a fan, but also as an administrator of a CIAA school. What to you makes the CIAA so special amongst all the NCAA conferences?
I think history. I mean, if you dig into the history and you really just close your eyes and think about what happened. So, Tom, when we think about that, your dad, and, I'm a member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. My son, was able to join our great fraternity as well. And one of the things I asked him to do was to close his eyes and think about what was going through the minds of our founders when they founded our great organization. And so what I asked alums and others to do, to think about what was going through the minds of those great men who started what we know of today as the CIAA, because what the CIAA means today was not what it was during its inception. Today it's the Collegiate Interathletic Athletic Association. I hope I got the acronyms right. But back then it was colored. The Colored Intercollegiate Athletic Association. So think about that word colored. Back in 1912, we were considered colored. They didn't think about collegiate, so to speak. And so what I'm saying is, when we think about what was going through their minds back then in 1912, I hope I didn't say 2012, 1912. And then I think it was around 1950 when we took on the name collegiate. What makes the tournament so special is its longevity and the historic implications of where we were as a people and look where we are today. I mean, before Brown versus the Board of Education, we had the CIAA. And so I think that that's what makes us special. We've given birth to, other conferences. When you look at what is today the MEAC and Division I, at one time, most, if not all of those schools were part of the CIAA.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Davis, I appreciate your time here with me this morning. And before I get out of here, before you get out of here, I got to ask, of course, how's everything in Livingstone today?
And everything is great in Livingstone. And again, shout out to the Tom Joyner Foundation and all that you do to keep students in school. I can't think of another individual, another foundation who has done so much for so many. And we're just blessed that we are still the Livingstone College School of the Month. I like to brag about that, helping Dr. Jenkins as a special consultant. I go back to the last time we were the School of the Month. We held the distinction of being one of your top performers back then. And we were on track to become the first $1 million school. But someone beat us out who were 4 times our size, but I'm not going to talk about them. They beat us out because they're 4 times our size. But we're on track. We are investing in our resource, and that is our student, because what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're raising those scholars. What people don't know is that Livingstone College is unique, not only when we look at the students that we attract, but we attract a student population that some institutions are unwilling to take a risk on. But what we say is we're going to be the school of the late bloomer. And so if you have the will, we will try to make a way. Last year, through our annual operating budget, we provided more than $4.5 million in student aid and persistence grants. That's putting, your mission where the mouth is. And so that's where we are at Livingstone College. And, I'm just thinking, man, when we think about HBCU's time, we didn't cover this. My dream is to one day close my eyes and, beyond Livingstone and just looking at as an alum, not as an administrator. I would love to see what would happen if we had a protest year. What I mean by protest is a social engagement year. Just imagine, remember the Fab Five back in the day?
Michigan, yes, right.
That's right. Remember, they ran the tables and everyone was like, wow, that is unprecedented. We later seen super teams in the NBA, but can you imagine what would happen if 5 families, 5 McDonald's All-Americans got together and said, you know what, this year, instead of going to a highly ranked, highly visible Division I program, what if all of us went to a single HBCU of our choosing? You know what would happen? What would happen is they would run the tables in their conference. After they run the table in their conference, they'd win their conference tournament. They'd get an automatic bid if the NCAA is true to form, which I've seen them do, at least in this last tournament. If you're from a conference that is tagged as an HBCU, you get a playing game. They'd win the playing game, and then they would have an opportunity to face the number 1 seed. That is what has happened year over year. Can you imagine if an HBCU with top talent, 5 McDonald's All-Americans who said, hey, we're going to go to one institution. And then they run the tables and they get on the national stage to take on Goliath, so to speak. We would see David slay Goliath, and then an awareness and an appreciation for what we do at historically Black colleges and universities would be in the forefront of people's minds. And then we'll see a change as it relates to parity, as it relates to resources that will come to our conferences. So that's just my dream, closing my eyes, hoping I'll see it in my lifetime.
Oh, no, that's a heck of a vision, Dr. Davis. I mean, and I agree with you. And that's something that I believe, could actually happen in our lifetimes. Something like that to me would start with alumni and supporters making scholarship dollars available to be able to recruit and attract and compete with, your other, Division I top 10 programs, for those kinds of students. But if we were able to pull that off, to have those kinds of students actually come to play in a CIAA member college, a SWAC member school, a MEAC member school. Oh yes, run the tables, but also reset the conversation on HBCU athletics permanently. We just need that one spark, that one catalyst, to get us going and keep us going. So yeah. I feel you on that. I agree completely.
Yeah, as an A&M design minister, presiding elder, I always say prayer changes things. So guess what? We'll just keep praying for that one, Tom. And, that's just where I see things going, man. I think that as a nation, I think that we need to change the narrative. Yeah. Once we change the narrative, I think the sky is the limit.
Well, Dr. Davis, before we get out of here, I got one last question to put you on the spot here. You got any predictions for CIAA 2020?
Man, you know what? My prediction, CIAA 2020, Livingstone College, CIAA 2020. That's true. 2020. That's right.
You are true to North Carolina all the way, even Duke for this year, my man.
Duke this year, Livingstone next year. And, we're going up to Baltimore. So, we're going to have some blue crab. Well, they'll be out of season, but we're going to go up to Baltimore, have a good time, and enjoy what Baltimore has to offer. We'll be back in Charlotte next year.
Last year, yep.
Yeah, we're going to have the home. This will be the last year that we'll say that we'll have home court advantage. So Livingstone cuts down the nets 2020 in Charlotte.
Yeah.
That's my prediction and my prayer, Tom.
All right. Dr. Davis, thanks a lot for your time today, and we'll be back with HBCU Ubiquity.
All right. Thank you.
Before we get back to the HBCU Ubiquity podcast, let's take a look at some Tom Joyner Foundation fundraising highlights. Here's an example of TJF's success.
Hi, my name is Dante Webb, a junior majoring in physics at Dillard University. I'm from Dallas, Texas. I want to take this opportunity to say thank you to the Dillard University Dallas Alumni Chapter and Tom Joyner Foundation for providing me with this scholarship. After graduation, I will attend Georgia Tech to obtain my master's in mechanical engineering.
To donate to the Tom Joyner Foundation, just log on to www.tomjoynerfoundation.org and you can help a student continue their education at a HBCU.
Welcome back to HBCU Ubiquity. This has been a very powerful episode for me personally. As a student at Howard University back in the 90s, I had never heard of the CIAA. It was not until working with the Tom Joyner Foundation starting in the late 90s that I began to experience and understand what it was all about. First attending the tournaments back when they were in Raleigh, North Carolina, and then moving to Charlotte, North Carolina. I got a chance to experience the magical feeling of a massive homecoming, multiple schools, multiple generations of students, whether they are there to enjoy basketball, to support the alma mater, to reconnect with old friends, or to network. The CIAA is like nothing else on earth. We've had some great conversations today, and I want to thank Dr. Anthony Davis from Livingstone College. As you probably were able to infer from his interview, the rivalry is real. Livingstone College or Winston-Salem University or Johnson C. Smith University, whatever CIAA school you went to, that is who you represent. And also, I want to acknowledge the things that he said about how Livingstone itself, as well as the other CIAA conference member schools, are preparing their athletes for life after the basketball court, for life after student athletics, for life after college. Also want to thank Ms. Jackie McWilliams, Commissioner of CIAA. From a student athlete at Hampton to a commissioner, that is an incredible success story. And the economic impact points that she shared with us, as well as the history of the 75 years of the CIAA, I really appreciate that, and I hope you appreciate that as well. So with that said, again, we thank you for coming to listen to today's episode of HBC Ubiquity, and encourage you to support us on social media. If you have show topic suggestions for us, if you want to continue this conversation and chime in with your own CIAA memories or your own CIAA facts and tidbits, please come find us on HBC Ubiquity at Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, you name it, we are there. And once again, please do not forget to support us at TomJoynerFoundation.org, whether it's to support a student, support an HBCU, or support this podcast. Thank you for joining HBC Ubiquity today, and I hope to hear from you again soon. Thank you.